Up next on The Reveal.
What kind of people take on a job that specifically is designed to help children, to protect children, and then don't go visit a child or falsify documents?
But it happens more than you might think. The alarming results of our investigation.
Yeah, they stepped in, let's see, after she was murdered, but what about before time?
Who can access a gun and when? A national debate hits home.
Now, I never even imagined for a millisecond that he would hurt someone in his house with a gun.
But you thought he could hurt somebody.
That smell of burned bodies will never leave.
And powerful lawmakers respond to our investigation into soldiers in a mental health crisis.
Is there anything concrete that you can tell me that you're prepared to do to fix this?
From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Murrow Award-winning team of investigators.
Welcome to The Reveal, an investigative show making an impact. I'm Brendan Keefe.
And I'm Faith Abube. They're young and innocent. They're also victims of a system designed to keep vulnerable kids safe. Our investigation reveals more than 40% of DFCS caseworkers disciplined were either negligent or inefficient in performing their duties in the last 4 years. And now one Metro Atlanta family is calling for changes the agency promised years ago that they say could have prevented their little girl's death. Robin Moss can almost still hear it.
Grandmommy, grandmommy, I love you so, love you so, love you so. Imani, I love you so, I love you so, I love you so.
Her first granddaughter strumming this red guitar in her sweet little voice, echoing through the house.
So we just made up songs all the time.
It's one of the many memories Robin and Imani Moss made together. And today it's all flashing back.
She was juicy, my juicy jaw baby.
Years later, that well-fed baby would die at the hands of her stepmother, beaten and starved to death.
And from a child juicy like that to bony like my finger. Sometimes I just sit and go through all of these and cry.
Robin blames Imani's killer, but she's also one of several families currently suing DFCS, the Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services, for negligence and wrongful death.
I called DFCS. DFCS knew about her case, and they did nothing about it.
Imani's case forced a series of changes at DFCS to try to make kids safer. But 6 years, millions of dollars, and 3 new agency directors later, The Reveal has uncovered records showing 2 out of every 5 caseworkers have violated agency policy, potentially putting kids in danger. Between January 2013 and August 2018, out of roughly 1,900 caseworkers, more than 800 were disciplined. Some were minor policy violations, but about 14% of the caseworkers falsified a record or lied about checking in on a child in DFCS custody, and 42% were negligent and inefficient in performing their assigned duties.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Ashley Wilcott is the former director of the Office of the Child Advocate, an oversight office for DFCS.
You call this data frightening. Why? What kind of people take on a job that specifically is designed to help children, to protect children, and then don't go visit a child, or falsify documents, or don't keep their records? And the basics, those things to me, I cannot comprehend.
The records also show in at least 2 cases like this one, the caseworker's action resulted in a child death. Prosecutors have argued Imani Moss, Layla Daniels, and several other children who've died in DFCS care would also be alive had caseworkers done their jobs properly.
I want to be clear. On November the 2nd, did you undress Layla?
No, ma'am.
So if Layla had bruises on her body, would you have seen them?
No, ma'am.
And if a child's nonverbal, should the case manager be doing that at every visit?
Every home visit.
2-year-old Layla was killed by her foster parents, Joseph and Jennifer Rosenbaum. Many DFCS errors were exposed during the murder trial in July. Tom Rollins is the DFCS director.
I think the hopeful side of this is that we are catching all of those instances.
But we're catching them after the fact.
Yes, but remember that we are We are all humans here. But I will say we do not tolerate falsehoods. We cannot tolerate unethical behavior.
Rollins points to the list of disciplinary actions as progress. Half of the policy violations ended in a written reprimand. A third of the caseworkers were fired.
Yeah, they stepped in, let's see, after she was murdered, and they said this and they said that, but what about before time? So you didn't step in. It's too late to step in when a child is gone.
In the last 4 years, the turnover rate for DFCS workers has decreased from 39% to 34%. The average caseload has gone from as high as 100 to 19. The agency has increased pay and hired more people. So things are changing in terms of resources that are coming from taxpayers, but these problems still persist.
I don't believe anybody should promise that overnight we will solve this problem. This is going to be an ongoing issue.
Rollins says as the new head of the agency, his focus is on changing the culture. And with that, he hopes he can cut down on the bad acts.
It can be stressful, but we're doing everything we can to make those frontline workers know that they are the most important part of our work because they're the ones who are touching those families every day.
It's too late for both Layla and Imani. Imani's ashes still sit on her grandmother's mantle.
I will not let anybody put her in the ground right now because she's been tortured. When I'm ready, I'll release it over the mountain or something so she can be free.
But Robin hopes the slow wheels of change doesn't make a victim out of another child whose only hope for safety might be in DFCS.
I don't want to see another death for a child. I just don't want to see another child hurt.
Faith, you pressed DFCS for specifics on fixing these problems. Are they changing anything other than the culture?
So Rollins believes that the culture is a big part of it. There's so much pressure on these caseworkers that they feel they can't be open about their challenges, so that sometimes leads to falsifying records or lying about things. But other than that, DFCS is also now randomly reviewing 300 to 500 cases every month to make sure they're catching problems before they happen and giving these caseworkers the help they need.
Next on The Reveal.
I don't know if it's a Democrat-Republic issue. I think it's a people issue. I wouldn't know what matter what side are you on, male or female, old or young. It's a people issue.
Her life forever changed at the hands of a gunman, her own brother. Tragic images of a terror we've witnessed in this country far too often. In the wake of the mass shootings in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio, there are renewed calls for stronger gun control. Who can access a gun and when? Red flag laws have gained the biggest attention. Lawmakers actually introduced an idea in Georgia last session, but the bill never made it out of committee. One family says that lack of action was a terrible and almost deadly mistake.
Tommy Burns calls himself Batman, suitable for someone in Georgia's film industry. To him, life is an adventure. He is athletic and strives to be the best.
How much water have you had today?
Even now, as he sits paralyzed in his wheelchair.
And I used to tell people all the time that I'm never dying.
A bold statement. Even before police say Tommy's stepson opened fire in February, hitting both his dad and sister 7 times.
Hey, Kayla. I love you.
This Batman never thought he'd meet a gunman.
Atlanta 911, operator 2982, was it just an emergency?
Everything happened right here in the kitchen.
Kayla Burns went to get her phone charger from the kitchen. Tommy was around the corner on the phone.
I hear gunshots. I knew exactly who they were from, and I knew exactly where they were going. I was looking for him, and I couldn't find him. So I just got in front of her and put my arms up.
Please, come now and help us. Help us, Lord.
He fell here, and this in the ground right here is actually when he was still shooting us.
They both could hear King Aaron Burns reloading, but police say he put one of the bullets in backwards, jamming the gun. Did you know he had a gun?
He told me he had a gun on layaway. I was pondering, how can I keep him from obtaining this gun, because he's going to hurt someone.
Tommy says the tool he needed was an extreme risk protection order. It's a court order that could have removed his stepson's gun and prevented him from buying another one for up to a year. He says as a teen, there were concerns King might be bipolar, but as an adult, he wasn't taking any medication. Tommy couldn't take his behavior anymore and gave him 2 weeks to move out.
Now, I never even imagined for a millisecond that he would hurt someone in his house with a gun.
But you thought he could hurt somebody.
But I thought he could hurt someone.
State Representative Matthew Wilson says it is the very reason he introduced House Bill 435.
It was assigned to the Public Safety Committee, where I think it was put in the bottom drawer of a desk that was locked, never to be opened again.
Then came a deadly weekend. 2 mass shootings and an unexpected statement from President Trump, a seeming endorsement of extreme risk protection orders, better known as red flag laws.
We must make sure that those judged to pose a grave risk to public safety do not have access to firearms.
17 states and the District of Columbia already have red flag laws. They vary on who can petition the court and the evidence needed.
Verbal threats, threatening behavior, diagnosis of mental illness, for example.
A similar law passed in Oregon allows both family members and law enforcement to file the petition. In its first 18 months, 117 requests were made, more than half of those by law enforcement. And they didn't just want guns. One order took away the defendant's knives, hatchets, and axes, too.
It's going to be difficult for a family member to meet that evidentiary burden without also involving law enforcement.
A third, or 36 of the petitions, were still denied or dismissed on appeal.
The devil's in the details.
But John Monroe with Georgia Carry says there isn't enough time for gun owners to build their defense before hearings are held. And in an emergency hearing, they may not be present at all.
You have to get a lawyer if that's what you're going to do. You have to gather evidence, get witnesses, maybe get a psychological evaluation.
There's controversy, even in states that have passed legislation. Dozens of sheriffs in Colorado say they won't enforce the orders when it goes into effect next year. And the ACLU says it won't support red flag laws that don't have clear, non-discriminatory criteria for defining persons as dangerous.
I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks.
Monroe likens red flag laws to the movie Minority Report, where the government uses high-tech analytics to predict who will commit a crime and arrest them before it can happen.
Only it's less sophisticated because it's lay people and judges.
Tommy Burns says you don't need high-tech analytics. Sometimes you just know.
Do you feel like you would have had enough evidence or information to have convinced a judge?
I would have had enough evidence to make the attempt.
3 weeks after the shooting, weak and barely able to walk herself, Kayla returned home. It was her birthday.
Happy birthday! Surrounded by my friends and people who love me and in celebration of me because you didn't win.
Her brother didn't win, but he has changed their lives forever.
What? He passed out.
Between her own therapy, she takes care of her dad. Both have gone from jobs behind the camera to speaking in front of them, hoping their story can change laws.
I don't know if it's a Democrat-Republic issue. I think it's a people issue. I wouldn't know what matter what side are you on, male or female, old or young. It's a people issue.
Rebecca, has King Burns said at all exactly why he opened fire?
According to the police report, he told officers that he opened fire because he felt threatened. He has pled not guilty to charges of aggravated assault and battery, but has been denied bond. 6 months after the shooting, he remains in the Fulton County Jail. So going back to the extreme risk protection orders, what kind of national support are we seeing for those? We have certainly seen President Trump start to back away from his support of gun reform, just as Congress, of course, is preparing to go back in session. But there was a survey done before the mass shootings. It was done by APM Research Lab, and they found that 70% were okay with the idea of family and police having this option of getting these types of protection orders. And even 60% of Republicans and gun owners, according to the survey, said they support the idea.
Coming up on The Reveal. So what you're saying is the Army's policies to protect these soldiers don't work.
It doesn't work. No.
Accusations the Army turned its back on some of its vulnerable soldiers.
Welcome back to The Reveal. We brought you the story of Jeffrey Smith. He served 3 tours in Afghanistan, but recently found himself fighting to leave the Army with honor, benefits, and help.
Smith's story is not an isolated case, and now members of Congress are weighing in, questioning whether soldiers are kicked out of the Army because of their behavior caused by PTSD.
So the findings in our reporting concerns you?
Absolutely.
Washington State Congressman Adam Smith,
Resolution number 2,
chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, says our findings reaffirm a problem he's seen.
Every couple of people who come to you, several hundred come to me. So I am aware of it.
This is the catch-22. The stress of combat leads to conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder. And for some, those conditions lead to problematic behaviors. We found cases where Army leaders then kick the struggling soldiers out of the service with other than honorable discharges, treating them as troublemakers instead of people who need help.
Okay, there are some command structures that have the right people in charge who understand how to treat this, but too many don't.
Last week, we revealed Army leaders at Joint Base Lewis McChord kicked this Lacey veteran out of the service for misconduct after he showed up to work drunk and got a DUI.
It's when you get home that your brain starts processing everything that you went through.
His military medical records show his PTSD, the condition he got by serving our country, was the very reason he was abusing alcohol.
That smell of burnt bodies will never leave. It could be anything. All of a sudden, I'll start getting it in my nose.
And last year, in a 5-month investigation, we uncovered local Army leaders failed to act on the advice of their own medical experts.
So what you're saying is the Army's policies to protect these soldiers don't work.
It doesn't work. Nope.
It wasn't just whistleblowers at Madigan Army Medical Center who told us about this problem. We found it ourselves in the case of this Shelton veteran at risk of suicide.
So that was like one of many things that we were exposed to.
The Army booted him for behaviors doctors said he couldn't control. He was in a special unit designed for wounded soldiers in need of help. And it was there he got in trouble for smoking pot. His medical providers found he was using the drug to cope with his anxiety and PTSD. The Madigan whistleblowers told us what happened to him is a pattern.
Yes, I agree with them completely. The question is, why did the commander overrule what the medical profession said should be done? And the why is because they have not embraced an understanding of how traumatic brain injury, PTSD, mental health issues affect the people that they are leading.
Smith says he wants to encourage better mental health training for commanders.
Because the culture right now is not there. The culture is still, mental health issues are something they just as soon not deal with.
He says it's the military, not Congress, that has to make that cultural shift.
Is there anything concrete that you can tell me that you're prepared to do to fix this?
Yeah, you're not going to fix it, okay? You're not going to stop mental health. You're not going to magically make sure that every treatment is right. What we can concretely do is change the training to better emphasize mental health. That's what we can do.
Some progress, a story will continue to follow.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
I'm Jeremy Campbell with a new podcast for your commute. It's called Number 1500, and it's a true crime story that happened right here in Georgia. You can download Number 1500 on Apple, Spotify, or through the 11 Alive app.
Thanks for watching The Reveal, the nation's only weekly local investigative show.
We'll see you next week for another episode of The Reveal.